You need a quick photograph. Oh, it might be here too.
With the rock?
There's a black chair over there in the corner.
Oh, yeah, see. Oh, I can take it if you want.
Blue check.
So it's not this. There's two laptops. Oh, maybe that. Yep.
Yes. I don't know what happened to my computer.
Usually doesn't go that fast, but. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know which seat is Mika's? Must be on this side. This side, okay. Yeah, but I can't leave this now.
Number right over there.
Oh, that's too bad. Do we want to try? I did not know I was going to have this job.
Yeah, as soon as I put my phone in the thing, I can't use it anymore for that.
See the Mel Gibson?
Okay, I think we should.
Oh, I didn't realize.
Yes. Yeah, I know. Another.
If they made this art. Broad.
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning. Morning.
Well, we made it. We came through this unimaginable year, and here we all are now together.
Yay.
I'd like to thank Stacy Baker for making the live stream possible, and for all of those who are live streaming this event, and for all of you who are here supporting this group of young people. And I think it's also the time to take a moment to acknowledge the heroes of this year, our beloved faculty and staff. Definitely couldn't have done it without you. Wow. So I'll just share a brief couple of words before we get to the proceedings, but most of you know that Horace is our third child and final child to be coming through UVWS. Today wraps up a 16-year-long journey for our family at the school. And of the myriad of things that we've learned here as a family, I want to touch on just one. So I'm hoping that you all can use it as a tool in high school, as a touch point in memory, and for all of us as well. As we emerge from this year of unrest into a time of recovery, repair, and reconciliation, I want to share with you a not so closely guarded secret of the magic of working together. Here at UVWS, it really starts from the get-go. As you know, most of you, we are part of a over 100-year-long educational tradition in Waldorf School. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of schools throughout the globe, and I want to remind you that wherever you go, there will be Waldorf grads, and they, just like we are here to support you in your journey, they're out there too, and they're kindred spirits, so don't forget to be able to reach out to whatever place you're in. They'll be there. And in all Waldorf schools, there are certain through threads that come throughout the experience, and probably every single Waldorf school has a Michaelmas play and a Harvest Festival in the fall. And anyone affiliated with UVWS will likely know that it's an all-school play. Each grade has its own specific role, and first graders have a very important role. They are the gnomes that are forging the spear, or the sword that is going to subdue the dragon. I won't go into the details, but they break onto the scene in their little red hats, and they're tinking their wooden rhythm sticks together, and we hear, even before we see them, we will work with our will, with our strength and our skill. Now, spoiler alert, they do subdue the dragon. And the dragon is not killed yet. The sword does play a very crucial role in that ordeal. And I'd like to fast forward now to Winter Fair. This whole place is transformed into a winter wonderland, people scurrying around, festooning with handmade decorations and just lots of activity. And one particular year, after being here a long time, thumbs sore from push pinning in branches and strewing lights, and I turned to a faculty member, and let's just say it was June, because I consider June to hold all the secret wisdom of this school. Where are you?
Yeah.
said, wow, I really got to know some people that I didn't even know. It was great. And she kind of gave a knowing smile, and she said, well, that's kind of part of the design here, because we know when you're working together, you're actually forming a deeper relationship when just a social relationship. So, these projects, these plays, these festivals are intended to, A, get us working together to make something beautiful, thus, B, bringing us into deeper relationship with one another, ultimately, C, forming a community which not only brings us joy, but, surprise, surprise, enables us to do more work together. And just one more recent example. In the middle of the winter, pretty much everybody knows it snows in the winter in Vermont. Snowplow plows the driveway every single time it snows. One particular time this winter, the snowplow completely obliterated our bell tower, beautiful bell tower. Yes, instantaneously pile of sticks. And which, side note, I would say could be considered a metaphor for the past 15 months of our lives. So, not to fear, who pipes up, but Mr. Price, no worries. 8th grade woodworking class can take care of this. We got it. That's the impulse. Something's broken. Here we are. We're on the scene. And so the cycle continues. So back to the present, to you soon to be graduates. When you're in high school, there will be plenty of work. You're up to it. And don't forget, when you find yourself in a group project, remember, because of this place, you're imbued with a secret superpower. The work is not just the work, but it is a pathway to bring yourself into relationship, community, fun, and a growing capacity for meaningful change. I wish you all the best.
You want this first? Sorry.
So it's so wonderful that we're actually here in person to celebrate the graduation of these 4 8th grade students. For those of you who don't know me, I am Julia Pellegrino. I have had the privilege of being the class teacher for these students this year in 8th grade. Because of COVID, we haven't been able to have any of our traditional gatherings this year. We haven't been able to have any assemblies where the children of all the grades could share their accomplishments down in the Quechee Church or here in our school. No class plays, no festivals. And so we have a backlog of things inside of us, a bottleneck of things we haven't shared. So today we are going to be sharing a few things with you, just the 8th graders that they normally, you might have heard earlier in the year. And the first thing that I'll be leading the 8th graders in is a recitation piece. It is a tradition in our school around Martin Luther King Jr. holiday for our 8th grade students to speak portions of his famous speech, I Have a Dream. And they were unable to do that. So today we're going to share some excerpts of that speech with you. But right around the time that our students were remotely celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day, it happened to be on the very day of the presidential inauguration of the United States this year. And the Youth Poet Laureate gave a very meaningful speech that moved these students, Amanda Gorman. And so today, our students are going to share with you what I call Martin Luther King Jr. and Amanda Gorman in dialogue. And the poem that she spoke at the inauguration is called The Hill We Climb. And as we studied both of these speeches as a class, we began to see some very parallel techniques in their speeches. I think that Amanda Gorman must have carefully studied the I Have a Dream speech. Actually, I don't know for sure. But you'll find in both of these different orators, speakers, they both repeat phrases to great and powerful effect, and you'll hear our students doing that. They both refer very liberally to biblical passages. Both use the power of place. They name places throughout our nation. And so we shared both of these speeches with you today. And you will know when Martin Luther King Jr. is speaking, the students will be back. And when they step forward, they will be speaking the words of Amanda Gorman. So I invite you to enjoy our recitation. Thank you.
Should I stand in front of my camera?
50 years ago, a great American, in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, signed the Emancipation Proclamation.
This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves, seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity.
When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a seed we must wave.
We've braved the belly of the beast and learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just this.
But 100 years later, the Negro is still not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination.
100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity.
100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land.
And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it.
Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished.
We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism.
We, the successors of a country and the time where a skinny black girl, descended from slaves and raised by a single mother, can dream of becoming president, only to find herself recited for one.
And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean that we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge a union with purpose.
To compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to a sunlit path of racial justice.
Now it is time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood.
Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children.
It would be fatal for our nation to overlook the urgency of the moment.
We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing, say, this is true.
That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together, victorious. Not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division.
I say to you today, my friends, so even as we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
A dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their characters.
Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we are to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is a promise to glade the hill we climb.
I have a dream today.
I have a dream that every valley will be exalted, and every hill and mountain will be made low. The rough places will become plain, and the crooked will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh will see it together.
If only we dare. It's because being American is more than just a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it.
We've seen the force that would shatter a nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy.
And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated in this truth.
This is our hope.
This is the faith I go back to the South with.
With this faith, we will be able to hew out of a mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood.
With this faith, we will be able to work together,
To pray together.
To struggle together.
to go to jail together,
To stand up to freedom together.
Knowing that we will be free one day.
In this faith, we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of redemption. We feared it in inception. We were not prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it, we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves.
So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be a country that is bruised, but whole benevolence, but bold, fierce, and free.
We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens, but one thing is certain.
If we merged mercy with might and might with right, love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright.
And
this will be the day.
This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing, land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire.
Let freedom ring from the mighty mountains of New York.
Let freedom ring from the heightening Alleghenies of Pennsylvania.
Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado.
Let freedom ring from the curvaceous slopes of California.
But
not only that.
Let freedom ring from the red hills of Georgia.
Let freedom ring from Lookout Mountain of Tennessee.
Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi.
From every mountainside, let freedom ring. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath, my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one.
We will rise from the gold-limned hills of the West.
We will rise from the windswept Northeast where our forefathers first realized the revolution.
We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Middle Western states.
We will rise from the sun-baked South.
We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook over our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge, battered and beautiful.
And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will speed up the day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual.
Free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
When day comes, we step out of the shade of the flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it.
For there was always light.
If only
We
we're
were
brave enough to see it.
If only we're brave enough to be it.
I have a dream today.
begin, and before I turn on the microphone, 8th graders, I would like you to take your chair and move to sit in front of your families so that I can look at you while I'm speaking.
Greetings, Upper Valley Waldorf community. Greetings, parents, siblings, relatives, and friends, and of course teachers of our honored 8th graders, and especially greetings, Nika. Greetings, Lois. Greetings, Monet. Greetings, John. Before I get started, I want to share with you a verse that Rudolf Steiner gave to some of the very first teachers of the Waldorf school in Stuttgart, Germany, a little over 100 years ago. Receive the children in reverence. Educate them in love. Send them forth in freedom. It is my honor and great pleasure to have been asked to speak to you today. When I was asked to speak, I was told it was because of my obvious and palpable connection with the 4 of you. And it is true that I have taught you for these last 3 years, but our connection is deeper and more complex than that. I was called here to teach at UVWS in 2010, a year that 3 of you were here in kindergarten. I took a 5th grade class at that time and taught them through the 7th grade. That class graduated from 8th grade in 2014 and were your 8th grade buddies. That class included Stephen Shearer, who is John's older brother. When I returned to school in 2018, after stepping back to raise my son Francis, you were among the first students I taught art to. And you will remember that was a bit of a turbulent year for you, but not because of art class. In addition to all of these connections, and somewhat tangentially, when I graduated from my 8th grade, oh so long ago, I was one of 3 students to graduate from the 8th grade that year at my school. So I know what it is like to have been part of a small class that was often combined with other grades. In addition, oh, sorry, I jumped back. Now let me just say that I don't remember a single word that was spoken during my 8th grade commencement, but John and Horace, I expect you to stay awake and remember every word. Just like the class that I took here at UVWS to teach in the 5th grade, you have had a number of class teachers. Just like that class, your families have been very active in this school community. And it bears mentioning that this graduation marks a milestone for the school and for your families, because for 3 of the 4 families sitting under this tent today, this graduation marks the end of an era. It is the moment when 3 families will move on in their journey to support their children in endeavors that no longer include the Upper Valley Waldorf School. But the truth is that none of you will ever truly leave UVWS, because UVWS lives inside of each of you. In my current position at the Upper Valley Waldorf School, I work with the 2 ends of the grade school. I spend a great deal of my time in the first and second grades teaching a course called the Extra Lesson with those students who are so fresh and joyous and eager to be in school. And then I also spend a lot of time with the middle school students teaching art with those students who are so fresh. I mean seasoned. And joyous, yes, but not always actually to be in class. And eager, or maybe challenging and strong. And rightfully so. The middle school years, even in the best of circumstances, are years that most adults look back on, or rather prefer not to look back on, and remember as the hardest years of their lives. Yet it was middle schoolers that I spent time observing at a Waldorf school in 2003 that proved to me that this was the educational system that I wanted to be part of. Now, spending so much time with you middle schoolers, with you now graduating 8th graders, with every middle schooler I have ever spent time with, I spend my days hearing about how much you want to and are ready to get out of this place, to move on, to do something new at some other new place, not here. And I try not to take it personally. And to this declaration of being ready to move on, I have to say, of course, absolutely, you are. Being the Waldorf teacher that I am, I've brought props.
Oh.
Here are 4 pair of shoes that are not your very shoes from kindergarten, but they could have been your shoes from kindergarten. These shoes do not fit you anymore. Neither would your shoes from 1st grade or 3rd grade or 5th grade, and it is highly likely that the shoes you wore at the beginning of this school year no longer fit you. You are ready to move on. The shoes have been becoming tighter. You have been speaking the ways in which they do not fit you anymore. In the moment, it sounds like rejection. But what is truly underneath is your inner work at self-definition. A circle has to reject corners in order to maintain its circleness. Until today, a large part of your story has been this school, the Upper Valley Waldorf School. This school has been your community, at least one of them. And as humans, it is through community that we find definition. I took a non-Western literature course in undergraduate school, and it was taught by a native-born Chinese man. I will never forget the lecture that he gave when he said, "You Americans are always talking about having to go away to the mountain to find yourselves. But in Eastern philosophy, it is known that no person can find oneself by oneself. It requires community to find your definition. And yes, the process of defining oneself often involves rejection, a kind of pruning, refining, of bringing into focus. In art, in painting and drawing, and especially in all two-dimensional media, we often talk about foreground and background. Each of you is the foreground. Setting yourself in front of or apart from the background of your communities. Where do you blend in? And where do you stand out or stand apart? You are about to step into new communities with new parameters, dimensions, and tones. This is a transition moment, a juncture at which you have the opportunity to reinvent yourself to some degree. Maybe at some point in this journey, someone named you. A classmate called you a clown, or the quiet one, the artsy one, the good athlete, or the one that's always in trouble, or some other description. And you took it on, you tried it out for a while, and then for whatever reason, could never quite break free of it, even though it did not feel quite right under your skin. It did not quite fit, but you felt locked in. Like that is what people expected of you, and trying something new would be too difficult to navigate or get your friends to understand. But this is a transition moment. And to a very large degree, you are free to reinvent yourself. Try on a different outfit. Wear a different pair of shoes. You don't have to be restricted to the ideas that you think others from this or any other community hold about you. Here's a secret, you actually never do, but I like to think of middle school and maybe high school, maybe even some of college as the chrysalis stage of human development. And did you know that until very recent history in scientific circles, it was believed that when a caterpillar went into a chrysalis, encased itself in a chrysalis and underwent the process of transformation, it was believed scientifically that the entire caterpillar became one big slurry of goo and then rebuilt itself into a butterfly or moth that would eventually emerge from that cocoon. Metamorphosis is not actually like that. Samuel Jaffe of the Caterpillar Lab in southern New Hampshire and is one of several scientists who have proven that all of the parts are there in the original being, the caterpillar, that will eventually constitute the transformed butterfly or moth or dragonfly. And that even though the caterpillar looks very little like the butterfly, it will eventually become. It does not simply become a slurry of goo in that time in between. Everything you need is already there inside of you. Everything you need for your magnificent transformation. We, your teachers, your family, your community have been walking this journey with you for a while, tending you, teaching you, loving you, urging, nudging, cajoling, even, dare I say, nagging you to be the healthiest beings that you can be, healthy in head, healthy in heart, healthy in hand, believing in the transformation that is coming. Because all of the parts are already there inside of you getting ready for your metamorphosis. And even though as teenagers, there will be times when you will feel like you are just a big, dare I say, aching slurry of goo inside. And those are the times that adults remember with such fondness. I'm sorry, I mean actual loathing. I'll say it again. Even though as teenagers, there will be times when you will feel like you are just a big, aching slurry of goo inside. In actuality, every possibility exists within you, and your transformation can be, will be, determined by the choices you make in this chrysalis period of your life, by your process of self-definition. During this time of transition, I give you permission. In fact, I actually charge you, John, pay attention. to work on your self-definition, but not just through rejection, through critical assessment, through trial and error, through both pruning and through choosing what not to prune, and most of all, through reflection. And know that we, your community, your families, your friends, your classmates, and your teachers, we will all be here still. Even as you move on to new communities, we will all still be here, and we will all still be willing, as you need it, wanted, to nudge you, to urge you, to cajole and nag you, to make the healthiest choices you can, to reflect for you the future you that we know you can be. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. Be brave, Mika. Be brave, Horace. Be brave, Monet. Be brave, John. You are ready to move on. And we send you forth in both love and freedom.
We have such a great tech team here. Just want to give a shout out. Thank you. We're hard to please. So this next part of our program, we'll be hearing from our graduates. Our students each will be offering a reflection. And before we begin, I would like to say that what you're going to hear today could not have been done without the help of Tanya Sweat. So thank you to Tanya. So we'll start in this order. And before I say the order, I'd like the graduates to move their chairs back. So we will start with Mika, then go to Horace, then we will go to John, and then we will end with Monet. So here are our graduates.
Once upon a time, I went to public school for preschool, kindergarten, and first grade. But when it was time for me to go into second grade, I transferred, and Waldorf wrapped its silk-gloved hands around me and moved me down a grade. Because, apparently, I didn't know enough about the physics of fire fairies. Turns out, moving me down was the best thing that could have happened to me. Because if they hadn't done that, I never would have come to know the 3 other wonderful people sitting before you. What a roller coaster of 8 years it has been. Our class has endured so much, and we have always been different, and that's what made us so unique. I cannot tell you how thankful I am to these 3 people. I have always been a shy person, mostly silent, relieved whenever John or Horace took the spotlight. I have always been just there. But as our class of 12 began to shrink, I found myself being pushed more and more out of my comfort zone. And as the years progressed, I started to gain a better understanding of my fellow peers. Like how on the outside, John is funny and loud, but on the inside, he's fiercely loyal and brave. Or how Monet, at first glance, is talkative and entertaining, but really, she's sensitive and kind. And how Horace, on the outside, is aloof and confident, but inside, he's encouraging and inspiring. But still, they looked outward at me, and I had only scratched the surface of understanding who they really are. Eventually, one of my classmates, Monet, became the #1 most amazing best friend in the world. When my brother passed away, she was there for me, never leaving my side. Another, John, was a role model for courage in anything athletic. You could never catch John in any game of freeze tag or capture the flag. He was just too fast. And one, Horace, who was a critical and quick thinker, urged me out of my crazed dragon drawing phase. It took 6 years. And as we went through the storms of Mr. Massey, Miss Larson, and Mr. Price leaving us, while classmates left and friend groups changed, we relearned stuff over again and again, and in different versions each time we had a new teacher. Then it felt like being cast out onto the front line of the ongoing battle within ourselves we didn't realize was raging, where our disappointment and thoughts of, is this worth it, were waiting with weapons to make us doubt. Vincent van Gogh once said, if you hear a voice within you say you cannot paint, then by all means paint, and that voice will be silenced. And to me, this means I should always keep going and that it's always worth it. These people are worth it. Even all those long main lessons and tiring handwork, movement, and woodwork classes, as well as those never-ending math classes that I always dreaded, are all worth it. I would never want to change the experience of then and now. And as I start a new chapter of my life by leaving and going to high school, I will finally start to look inward more and think about not just what is, but of what can and will be, knowing that this is far from the end. Always laugh and cherish memories. Being good or bad, never forget. I will not forget these 8 years of events and moments that you can't possibly put on paper. Farm trips, the pentathlon, our school plays, and so much more. The 8 years like different colored paints being carefully layered once more to the same textured canvas, trying to make the perfect blending, perfect brushstrokes, and perfect lighting and shadows of the human face. My grandpa once told me that it's not all about the paints, it's about the portrait, to look at it as one big picture. And for me, the big picture is the 8 years I have been here. I will never lose or forget what I've experienced. I will remember soft and pure first grade, the warming of beeswax and storytelling. I will remember tranquil and ascending second grade, the smells of flowers and candles engulfed me. I will remember the nature and essence of third and fourth grades, the pig riding and map making. I will remember the sword making and knighting games of the character and change of fifth and sixth grades. I will remember the fun and gossip of seventh grade. And I will always remember the bond, laughter, and friendship of eighth grade. This is what I go to high school with. We might not fully realize it yet, but we have not just created a painting. We have created a masterpiece.
For all the years I've been at this Waldorf school, 4 of us have been together since first grade. Each year helped to lay down the foundation for the strong relationships we have now. During my time with the class, I've seen our companionships fluctuate and shift, and we haven't always been the best of friends. However, we have learned to overcome our weaknesses and strengthen our bonds together. I can harken back to the times we spent during play blocks, knighting ceremonies, the pentathlon, and school festivals. I have come to embrace the phrase family when describing our class. And this goes to show the amount of bonding that we have cultivated by this point at the end of 8th grade. For as long as I can remember, John has been my friend, and has always stayed very close through the years. In 5th grade, we had the pentathlon. John and I ended up in the same city-state, Corinth. In that group, we were the only kids from our class. We became even closer as a result. By now, I'm sure everyone knows John is fast. But not only that, he's elegant when he's running. John was a leader who uplifted everyone with his boisterous attitude and outstanding sportsmanship. His athletic abilities were unmatched in the javelin and long jump. The opponent who would face John in the wrestling ring would meet their demise after being thrown out seemingly right after the start. The experience we both shared as the only one from our class in the same city-state created long-lasting memories I will never forget. I've known Monet for almost all my life. We've been classmates from kindergarten until now. We have a connection that is like siblings. And like siblings, more than I care to admit, we tend to argue a lot. Admittedly, we were not the closest of friends at the start of 1st grade, but through the years, we've become closer. In 6th grade, we worked as teammates during the knighting games. This is a tradition in 6th grade, where we work as classmates to solve puzzles and riddles around the campus. Usually, the knighting games are on a lovely sunny spring day, but it was a complete downpour for our class that year, and the rain gear that we were always expected to wear, even if it was just a light sprinkle, was not doing anything to keep us dry. Despite this, Renee never gave up, and as we came to the final task, which was to retrieve a shell from the bottom of an enormous trash can filled with water, she knew just how to motivate me to overcome this unpleasant challenge. Without hesitation, Monet immediately dared me to dive headfirst into the trash can. She knew I wasn't one to always think through the consequences of my actions. So in I went, headfirst, and I came out completely drenched, but shell in hand. Success. These are some of the great memories I hold with Monet. Monet has a captivating personality that draws others in, and she is a very likable and happy person. When Nika joined our class in 1st grade, I didn't think much of it, because she never really talked to me often. But I soon learned she was good at art, because she painted these fantastic pictures of dragons. I think I was very jealous of her skill, because I would critique her work. But Nika started to creep out of her shell and become a good friend as the years went by. I could share a joke, and we could constructively criticize and encourage each other's work. Nika began to create elaborate colored pictures in her main lesson books that would immediately grab your attention, and we were always blown away by her skill. Later on, when our class numbers started to fall off, I could truly begin to see her exceptional ability as an artist, both in musical arts and expressing imagination in drawings and paintings. I can't imagine my education without these 3 classmates, who have been with me the whole 8 years or longer. I've had unique opportunities here to learn and express myself as an individual. I've especially appreciated the support I've been given to grow as both an artist and also academically. Everything I've learned here has been valuable. I'm thankful for my mom and dad who made the decision for me to go to school here. I know I've had an excellent education that has impacted my life and changed me for the better.
As I stand here today, I think back to my first day of 1st grade, when I crossed the Rainbow Bridge and started my journey in the grades. I remember practicing crossing the bridge with my classmates under the direction of our kindergarten teacher, Miss Shifra. When the time came for me to actually go over the bridge, I was very nervous. I think I was a combination of scared and excited, which I'll call skited. So instead of walking slowly across the bridge, as I had been instructed to do, I speed walked over it. Today, I think my skited feeling is more excited than scared. Over all these years, I, and each one of us, have taken many brave steps, facing challenges and overcoming fears along the way. As first graders, we had to be gnomes in the Michaelmas play and chant in front of everyone. We will work with our will, with our strength and our skill, with a clash and a clang, on our anvils will bang, till the sword shines bright. It took courage and fighting nervous fears for us to perform in front of the whole community. But we did it. And we went on to do yearly class plays, all school assemblies, and music nights, and all kinds of performances. Later, in 3rd grade, we went on a multi-night farm trip to Springbrook Farm in Reading. While there, we helped with chores, gardening, taking care of cows, chickens, and pigs. At the end of one of those days, we were even allowed to ride the pigs. First, we went into the pen and fed the pigs so they would come near to us and have lots of energy. Then, our instructor told us that we needed to put our legs over the pig, grab its ears, and sit down. At that moment, I was not skited. I was just plain scared. Once a pig had a rider, it would bolt, swerve, and buck. I held on for dear life and wouldn't let go. Mark and I had some of the longest successful rides on the pigs. What began as fear became fun, an experience I will never forget. This fear of fun turning into fear happened during the medieval games when we were knighted in 6th grade. After our knighting ceremony, we had to take a 14-hour vow of silence. The next morning, we shook Miss Larson's hand, knowing that we were about to start our medieval games, but with no idea of what the day would bring. I'm pretty sure I wasn't the only one who was skited. During one of our trials, we encountered a series of terrifying witches. One of whom we later found out was my mother. To overcome the difficult challenges we faced, my classmates and I worked together. We banded together because we were stronger as a group than we were individually. And we also protected each other when necessary. This teamwork and reliance on each other allowed us to succeed. Nearing the end of our Waldorf career in 7th grade, COVID struck, and we were faced with a new series of challenges. Suddenly, we had to figure out how to use Zoom and do school online. At the same time, we had to keep track of enormous amounts of paper and stay organized. To make matters worse, it was also an isolating time when we could not see each other as we were used to doing. But over time, it became our new normal, and we settled into a rhythm. What was unimaginable at the beginning became doable. We found new ways to support each other and stay in touch through texting and calling. Even when we returned to school for 8th grade, our year was different with a hybrid schedule and a combined class with the 7th grade. A lot of examples I've shared are big challenges, but every one of us also faced small, everyday challenges during our years. For some of us, it might have been math or French or persuasive writing that felt hard. For others, it might have been doing a ropes course in our 8th grade field trip when you're not a fan of heights. No matter what the challenge, we've always found ways to take risks and do hard things. So now as we head off in different directions and go to school and go to high school, let's remember the times we felt skited and the fact that we've had lots of practice being brave. We can continue to take risks and face challenges, and we can support each other along the way.
My 11 years at Waldorf have been an experience. It's had its ups, its downs, some bad memories, and a lot of great memories that are going to stick with me forever. But throughout it all, there has always been the core four. I agree that does sound cliche, but it's true. The four of us, Horace, Nika, John, and I, have all been here since day one, September 3rd, 2013, the first day of first grade. Who would have thought we would have made it all the way to June 11, 2021, the last day of 8th? I remember all the way back to maybe first or second grade, it was Mayfair and our class was doing the cakewalk. We were all definitely overconfident for second graders, but man, we wanted that cake. After a few times of the iconic cakewalk violin song, the music stopped. The suspense was real. We all waited as someone reached into the hat about to make one of our second grade dreams come true. As they pulled the paper out, we all held our breaths. The name read, Clementine. I clapped politely, trying not to show my obvious disappointment. I guess I wasn't too good at hiding it because Clem ended up splitting the cake between all of us. The joy of when we got handed a slice of that chocolate cake cannot be matched. I remember Horace practically inhaling his. I'm pretty sure John ended up smashing his face into his. Nika slowly ate maybe a quarter of hers, and I ate the rest, plus my own. This memory also highlights the uniqueness of all my classmates. See, our class has always been like this. Horace is the quick thinker of our class, the smart one, but he also has a kind and funny side to him. I remember when we were in 6th grade, it was Mayfair, and our class was on lemonade duty. Now, we had made about 10 gallons of nice, cold iced lemonade and put it in one of those coolers with the little spout. It was ready to be brought up to the upper field, so of course Horace was more than happy to grab it. As he did, the handle snapped off, and the huge cooler filled to the brim with sticky cold lemonade spilled all over the floor of the farmhouse. A look of pure horror crept onto Horace's face as a small pond of lemonade formed around his sneakers. After the initial shock of the spill, he volunteered to clean all of it up. This shows that despite his good intentions, things might not always necessarily work out the way he plans. And even though it might not always be evident, he has a remorseful side. Now, John. Anyone will agree that John is the class clown. but he also is extremely sweet and very kind-hearted. Let's get back to the time of spring 2020, an emotional roller coaster on my end because of all the changes brought on by COVID plus the extra schoolwork. But throughout it all, John was always there for me. We would either text or FaceTime every day. We would update each other on our lives in quarantine, recommend songs, or just send random memes or gifts to each other. I remember I used to make these videos I would call COVID Life. I would send them to him, and knowing John, he would always reply with his very honest opinions on them. It was important to me to have this person to lean on, and being the lucky duck I am, I had John. Now last, but definitely not least, we have Nika. Nika is probably one of the most underestimated people I know. I mean, if you've just met her, you automatically assume that she is the quiet one, the shy one. And don't get me wrong, she is shy at first, but let me tell you, she is powerful. Small but mighty, you could say. I have so many memories with her, it's like they have all blended together. One very recent memory highlights how she is the perfect example of the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. 2 weeks ago, our class went to a high ropes obstacle course in Jeffersonville, Vermont. Now, if you know me, I'm not the biggest fan of heights, so I was sticking to the small, easy obstacles, like a small balance beam or an unsteady bridge. While I was crossing a particularly long one, where I had to slowly step from wooden stair to wooden stair, trying not to lose my grip on the small white ropes that were my only help balancing, I heard something from far above me. As I looked up, there was Nika, maybe 15, 20 feet above me, swinging from rope to rope on one of the hardest obstacles. I looked up, amazed and admiring, trying to figure out how she got up there so fast, seeing that we had only been on the course for like 10 minutes, then continued my trek. See, Nika does not come off as the person who you would think would go straight to the extreme sections of a rope course, but she is. Our class is like a fine marble statue. It has been chipped away over time as many classmates and friends came and left, leaving only the strongest. And yes, I am happy to be starting a new chapter of my life, but I will always remember how this school and education highlights each of its students' uniqueness. Even as we skip all the way to this year with just the core 4 left, we have all changed so much. Going from Horace being the small, mischievous one that I always seem to be arguing with, to being the tall, self-confident person who I consider to be one of my closest friends. And yes, we still argue. John has gone from being the tall, funny kid who I would regularly look at for a good laugh, to being one of the most lovable friends I could ask for, who, yes, makes me laugh every once in a while. Nika has changed in too many ways to name, but to try and sum it up, she went from being the quiet one who had maybe 1 to 2 close friends, to being my best friend in the world, and one of the single-handedly most amazing people I have ever met. All of us have changed so much in these 8 years. I may want to forget some parts of it, but I know I'll never forget you, the core 4.
Music, and so we'll change into our state mandated K95 masks so that we can sing. I'm Mr. Quigley, the chorus teacher, and oddly enough, my year has been completely without my subject. We've been electronic on Zoom, so we found lots of creative ways to involve music, lots and lots of listening. When we got to sing together in school about a month ago, I could not believe how hungry the kids were to use their voices. It brought me to tears in the very first class. What I did is I brought in about 24 of my most popular English pop songs, American pop songs that I've done in graduations over the years, and we just sang and sang and sang and sang. I didn't talk too much. I didn't do lesson planning. We just sang. And then we were talking about which songs are we going to sing, and here's what they chose. This group chose a song not to just sing about moving into the future, about boldness or courage. They brought a gift for their teachers, for their parents, for their frontline workers. They brought a gift for you. This song is by Alicia Keys and a number of collaborators. And as soon as I heard it, I put it on the very first listening list that we did this year. I think the lyrics are probably in many people's programs because we will see. We're still so unpracticed. We'll do our best to see how well we can project. Okay. I have music here, and I have a math too. John, is you here? Okay, one step forward. Cool. Being prepared is the thing that matters most. There we go. That one's for you. We don't want an organ. There we go. I was wondering if we were going to be in the same key as that cricket. We are not. All right, here we go. I want to change that sound. This is the first Waldorf song we've ever sung where a camera angle has mattered. Let's fix that so that everybody watching at home can see. So I'm going to move John a half a step back that way. And then Monet, I can't see who's who on the tiny camera, this way. Yeah, and then let's bring Nika in. Thank you, Miss. Well, let's go for even noticing. One more half step. And then Horace, a full step. We got it. Oh my gosh. Yay, production assistants.
You're the engine that makes all things go. You're always in disguise, my hero. I see your light in the dark. Smile on your face, we all know it's hard. There's no way to ever get you back. But still, know I love you for that. Darkness and softness, love that helps you. Good job, you're doing a good job, good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, 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 yeah. Good job, good job. Doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, 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 yeah. 6 in the morning, sitting as you walk through the door, everyone needs you. The world's out of order. It's not a sound when you're not around. Only on your feet, you have energy, I know. When it feels like the end of the road, you won't know, you just must know. You're the engine that makes all things go. Always in the sun, my hero. I see your heart in the dark. Smile on your face, we all know it's hard. There's no way to ever turn you back. Bless your heart, know I love you for that. Darkness and softness, love it helps me. Good job, you're doing a good job, good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, matter, yeah. You're doing a good job, good job. You're doing a good job, don't get too down. miss the teachers that reach us, strangers to friends that show up in the end. The bottom to the top, the listeners that hear us. This is for you, make us friends. Good job, good job. You're doing a good job. Don't get too through. The world needs you now. Know that you matter, yeah.
So, eighth graders, here we are on graduation day. I'm going to start by sharing a few thoughts and memories with you. And then I've asked Mr. Price to stand up and to share a few things, and he'll close our reflections for today. So you are a very special class. In no other graduation that I'm aware of has there been 100% of the graduating class also here on the very first day of first grade. So you set a record. All four of you crossed the Rainbow Bridge on the first day of school, and all four of you have been in this class for 8 years. That is indeed very special. And I have, interestingly enough, even though I have only been your class teacher for 1 year, I have long and deep memories of all of you that go far deeper back into time than for most of the students I've ever taught. I'd like to share some of my first impressions with you. Horace, I first met your mother at a school event. It was off campus, it was in a restaurant. And there were many other teachers, my colleagues were there with us, and some board members. And there was your mother, and I had never met her before. And it was quite obvious she was expecting a baby. And I feel pretty sure that baby was you, that wasn't yet born. And so I can remember all the time, way back to before you were even born. And I had no inkling at that time that some 14 or 15 years later, I would be teaching you and we would be in graduation together. John, I first learned about you when your family came to Vermont from California to see if this school was a good fit for your older brother. And indeed it was, because not only did your family decide not to go back to California, they decided to stay here. And I discovered that Stephen had 2 younger siblings, you one of them. And so that's when I first became aware of you, and I'm really glad that your family decided not to go back to California. Nika, your parents, your mom and your dad, your grandparents, you have all been a part of my life through the church that we share, long before you were ever even born. I don't think there's another student that I've ever taught that I could say to, I was at your baptism. You don't remember that because you were a baby, but I do. And Monet. Many years ago, I probably 10, maybe 11, I can't quite remember. I know I was teaching another class, 7th or 8th grade around this time. I was asked by my colleagues in the school to give a little presentation to the parents of kindergartners, parents who wanted to know about first grade. And there were quite a number of parents at that meeting. It was in our first grade classroom, but I only right now can remember one. He was a dad, and his name was Larry. And he sat in one of those little first grade chairs with his long legs all scrunched up, practically seemed like at his chin. And he listened so carefully to everything I had to say about first grade. Because you see, he had to make sure that this school was just right for his little girl. Afterward, after the other parents had left, he stayed just a little bit longer to talk to me. And he told me about his daughter. And when he spoke about his daughter, his eyes lit up, sort of the way I see your eyes light up when you're excited about something. And from the tone of his voice, I could tell how much he loved her. And I remember this because that little girl had a beautiful name that I remembered because she shared it with a famous painter, one of my favorite painters, and that was Monet. So you see, my memories of all of you go far, far back, before I ever had any inkling that I would one day be your teacher. Each of you has been here since first grade, and 3 of you have been here through our early childhood years with Ms. Kelly and Ms. Julie Brown for nursery, with Ms. Shifra and Ms. Martha. And then your journey through the grades started with Mr. Massey, who is also here today. Mr. Massey, come and stand. Over the years, you watched your classmates come and go, and at the end of 5th grade, you said goodbye to Mr. Massey. In 6th grade, you joined Ms. Larson's class, combining with the 7th grade class above you. And at the end of that year, you said goodbye to Ms. Larson. And then in 7th grade, Mr. Price, right here, led your class, combined with the 8th graders. And they graduated, and then there was 8th grade, and I became the teacher of the remaining 4 of you in the class, the core 4. I had the privilege of becoming your teacher. And the 7th graders now became your new classmates. Has this been the perfect Waldorf journey? By no means. But it's your journey. And sometimes I've heard a little bit of a disappointed tone in your voices when you talk about your years here, a different teacher so many times, different classmates. But I would go so far as to say that not only has it been your special journey, which no other class can share, I would say that in spite of all the upheavals, in spite of all the different teachers, in spite of all your different classmates, it has been a good journey. It has shaped you into who you are today, and you have shaped it. You have made friendships that you would never otherwise have made if you hadn't been combined with the classes above and below you. You have been stretched to learn in new ways, and that stretching has made you stronger. You have become flexible, adapting to the expectations and routines of each new teacher. And you have become resilient, learning that you can overcome disappointments, that you can move beyond them, and you can create your own happiness in the moments you are given. Now, normally at the rose ceremony for 8th graders, the class teacher gets to tell a story to her students one last time, and I didn't get to do that yesterday. So I'm claiming this time right now to tell you one final story. It's very short. John, it's very short. This is an old story from the Zen Buddhist tradition. Here it is. There was once a king. His subjects, his people, had become soft. They acted entitled. They wanted an easy life without working for it. The king, dissatisfied with this state of affairs in his kingdom, decided he wanted them to learn a lesson. His plan was very simple. He had a very large boulder, a massive boulder, placed right in the middle of the main road that led into the city, completely blocking the entry into the city. He then hid in the woods nearby the road to see how his subjects would respond. Well, with growing disappointment, the king watched as one person after another approached this boulder in the road. Some saw it, and then they just shrugged their shoulders and turned away and went back in the direction they come from. Some came up to it and put their hands out and gave a bit of a half-hearted push, but it was large and of course it didn't budge, and so they gave up. Some complained loudly and bitterly about the hardship and how unfair it was. And a few openly cursed their king for allowing this barrier to appear in their lives. It was so inconvenient for them. Well, after several days, a lone peasant came walking down the road on his way to the city. He had business to perform in the city. And he encountered this large boulder blocking the way to the city. And he knew he was very close to his destination. The city was just so close. He did not turn away. First, he put down his bag and he put his shoulder into the boulder and he leaned against it, strained and strained, trying with all his might to move it. All to no avail. It didn't even wiggle. Then he stood up and he wiped his brow and he thought a little bit and an idea came to him. He darted into the nearby woods looking for something that he could use as a tool to help. He found a large, strong, straight branch and he returned to the boulder having crafted a lever. He wedged this lever underneath this massive stone and he strained a bit more and eventually he was able to dislodge it and move it, inch it off the road. He was successful, took a deep breath and he rejoiced. And he was just ready to continue his journey now into the city when he noticed that right on the ground where the boulder had been sitting, there was something in the path. And he went to look and he noticed it was a leather bag. And inside that leather bag were gold coins and a note handwritten from the king. And this is what the note said. The obstacle in your path becomes the path you must go down to find success. Never forget this. Within every obstacle is an opportunity to improve your condition. So, 8th graders, I ask you to reflect upon your obstacles, your challenges. For within each challenge that you have faced over these past 8 years, and there have been many, within each one of those challenges, if you look hard, you can find the seed of every achievement and strength that you are now celebrating. As we were preparing for this little talk today, Mr. Price and I, on Zoom, earlier in the week, he said to me, Mrs. Pellegrino, this has been a hard year. And I said, it certainly has been a hard year. But then Mr. Price went on to say, and I told him I was going to quote him today, he said, but the students learn more from what is hard than from what is easy. And so now I turn to Mr. Price.
Mrs. Margarita, did you say leather?
Lever, I thought of you.
There must be 50 ways to love your lever. So, yes, thank you. It really has been a pleasure watching you this year in class. I feel like this was truly a match made in heaven. So, it occurs to me, so this, I'm the last teacher really to speak, and now I get it, because I'm over there like editing. It's the first time I heard all of the other speeches, so I'm crossing out all of this stuff. So I had this 90-minute speech. I'll be down to 45 or something now. There's still plenty for me to say. So my name is Tim Price, for those who don't know me, and this year I taught these students woodworking and lab science, and I played football with them and tossed frisbees. Nobody's talked about that. We're disc golf, so nobody's talked about those things yet. And last year I was their class teacher for a year when they were 7th grade combined with last year's 8th grade. So I know them, I think, more than a little. And yes, John, I am really skited. I'm grateful to be with you all today here right now. So yesterday, our 1st graders presented their 8th grade buddies with red roses, and seeing our youngest grade school children alongside the oldest, I think we really were all reminded of just how far they have come. I'm here to say a little bit about each one, and I'm going to begin by observations and insights shared by their first teachers in this school, from their report. So Nika joined the class in 1st grade. At the end of that year, her class teacher, Mr. Daniel Massey, wrote, "Nika plays with just the girls during recess, engaging imaginatively, which involves making houses for themselves and for fairies, creating stores, or roaming the forests as cats." She and 1 or 2 friends can be seen in the wooded park at the playground, singing and dancing in complete freedom and bliss. Though it's hard to fathom the ways Nika has grown and changed over these last 8 years, it's not that hard really to picture a much younger Nika spending recesses in that way. From that same year, Nika received this verse from St. Nicholas. "Victory by name. You can succeed in whatever you choose. Be strong, focused, and kind, and you will never lose." Nika's had quite a year. Out of her own determination, hard work, and perseverance, she's had breakthroughs on and off the football field. In French and math, for example. The high ropes course you heard about, at ease in the treetops, testing her agility and strength. When Nika sets her mind to do something, truly anything is possible. Nika's not one to complain. She never seems to ask for much. She's accepting and generous in this way. All of her teachers, though, have enjoyed seeing her find her voice this year and step up and out in new ways. John is the 3rd from his family to graduate from UWS. At the end of his 1st year, 2011, his nursery teacher, Miss Julie Brown, wrote, "In the beginning of the year, John was often shy when entering the classroom, and he'd stand near the door or a teacher until formal activities began. John is a warm-hearted, joyful, curious, and social child who thrives in spending time with his friends. He finds it important to feel that his voice is heard and that everything is fair. He liked to put all the animals back in their homes, tidy up the play kitchen, set the table, and fold the silks. What an appetite he has. I don't think there was one snack we offered that John did not enjoy. It was never a surprise when he came back for third. So John leaves impressions in many ways through his unbridled and remarkable physicality, through his uprightness and deep-rooted goodness, through his playfulness and sense of humor. Last year, during a free period that he and a classmate had, I brought them to Miss Kelly's nursery, and the two boys would help the 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds get dressed for the outside, and then they would spend time on the playground pushing on the swings and things like that. You know, it was really just a dear sight to behold these two swaggering boys brought into, that just the place of gentle watchfulness. All of the 3 and 4-year-olds were quickly at ease with them, and always looking at them just with smiles and loving eyes. Last year, John took on the part in our class play, the servant of 2 masters, the lead part, 500 or 600 lines. And through our rehearsals could get long and tiring and hard and really test our patience and fortitude. And John just never gave up, practiced and practiced and practiced. In the end, he had a great time on stage. He was a wonderfully funny and endearing servant. Monet and John were in Miss Julie Brown's nursery together. In her report at the end of that year, Miss Julie wrote, "Monet is a very social child who loves to be at school. She has a warm heart, gentle ways, and children are drawn to her. Monet loves to sing herself through the day. Her favorite songs were those with a great deal of movement. As I began a song, I would often hear her whisper, 'Oh, I love this one.' Monet has been a gift to us all. As a teacher, there is nothing like having a student who shares enthusiasm so generously and openly. As a classmate, I'm sure you couldn't have a more fun-loving, joyful, considerate, and loyal friend. Monet loves the theater, and last year she played a big part in our class play, that of the lovely, faithful, brave Clarice. She set an example for us all through her devotion to learning her part, through her interest in helping the cast and directors wherever we needed it, and through, of course, her exuberant, artful acting. Horace. So Horace started at the school before nursery in Morning Garden. So he's been here for 12, 13 years. Is that right? Yeah. He was in Miss Kelly's nursery. And at the end of that first year, she wrote, "Horace is a sensitive little boy. Horace usually began his mornings by making a boat, hotel, or restaurant, and would happily welcome others to join him. I sometimes reminded him that girls could be his friends too. At times his voice could get quite loud, and I would remind him to use his inside voice. His play is big and active and could easily overtake the room. Horace can crawl, hop, slither, tiptoe, stomp, and gallop. He is not aware of his own strength. And at times I reminded him not to hug or squeeze hands too tightly. Horace has impressed me in many ways. And yes, he is really, really strong, at times seemingly defying the laws of physics, as we saw this year, during physics. And during physics woodworking and during service projects around the school, like sawing logs with antique two-person saws, and carving a trail in the side of a steep hill with pickaxes on hot, humid days, I have found Horace to be uncannily insightful into how things might or should be done, and to know just the right questions to ask for the most helpful suggestions to take. Horace has changed how I look at and do certain things. It's helped me to become a better teacher. And Horace doesn't just suggest things, he is willing to dig in and take the lead in the work. In the woodshop, I'm not the first teacher to notice how he will leave his own project and just go over, step in, pick up a rasp or saw or draw a knife and help someone along with their project. Horace's presence can take over a room, but all of us know that he has a great, big, sensitive, tender place inside. And so, Nika, John, Monet, and Horace, just as you were kept wondering, waiting for storms to pass so you could go into the treetops at Smuggler's Notch. The last year and a half has all been unusual and unforgiving. But all of your teachers have appreciated how you have made the most of what has come to you. Your openness, willingness, big-heartedness prevailed in the face of very unusual times. I hope you have some sense of how much we have appreciated you and of how much we believe in you. I will conclude with a quote from the astonishing young professional disc golf player, Eagle McMahon, who at 23 has been a professional disc golf player for 10 years. In a recent tournament, which he won, after missing a few putts that he expected to make, he was heard saying to himself over and over, "Don't be afraid of life. Don't be afraid of life." Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Erin Ward. I'm the strings teacher. The 7th and 8th graders were combined this year for strings. So the 8th grade has just very ably in the last few weeks put this together to share with you at graduation. you wanted to skip the mic, it's probably okay. I don't know, do we need the mic for the video?
Hi everybody, my name is Heather Nolan. I'm the lucky mom of the beautiful Monet. And the handsome guy there on the end I was sitting next to, Teelan, who's a 6th grader. Oh, 7th grade. I'm just going to do a very quick, however very important thank you to our teachers, faculty. I do want to just say quickly, because I have the chance, that it's been absolutely delightful watching you 8th graders through these 8 years, and I'm super excited to see what's next. So stay in touch and don't disappear, you boys. Mika and Monet will be in the same high school, so that's so exciting. Let's see, I guess I just want to say what an incredible year. Starting, I was thinking sort of seasonally, starting in the summer last year and all of the planning and fine-tooth combing through the COVID regs that you all had to do, and then fall, the huge leap of faith that had to happen to jump back into school and wear a mask and and then outside classrooms and it was freezing cold and people couldn't feel their hands. Eating snack and lunch outside. And then the winter when it was so difficult and everyone was grieving the fact we couldn't see our family and friends for holidays and being there for the children. And then the spring came and people were finally getting vaccinated and we could sing again. I don't know where Kevin went, but we could sing again. And navigating all of that, just huge, huge amounts of gratitude for all of you faculty and cases. So the other parents, we do have a few small little things. Let's do Miss Cottrell first. And do you want to grab that big thing for her? Miss Cottrell, my dear. We have a couple things for you. That keynote was just so lovely, so thank you. This beautiful print was given to us sort of surprisingly yesterday, thinking that it would be something you would like. Wow. Thank you. Will you go in your art room? Should it go on the video? Okay, that's And then we have some flowers too. We have a plant as well for Mr. Price and Miss Pellegrino. All right, all these other ones here. Do you want to help me with this, Justin? Awesome. This is Justin Mika's dad. We have Corey, movement teacher, and Kevin, Mr. Quigley, chorus teacher. Looks like maybe charging. Here we go.
Keeping ourselves online. Yeah.
We have one for Miss Lord and Miss Albright.
Your camera slipped back.
We're still on show.
Maybe she's scared.
We have one from Madame. Is Madame's not here? Yeah, oh, she's there. Madame, French teacher. Bonjour, Madame. Merci. Mr. Wolf. And is Pete around? Is he here?
He's
Mr.
in the
Guy?
building watching
He's in
live
the
stream.
Oh, hello, Mr. Guy. We have a plan for you. And we have one for Kevin. Here. Am I forgetting anyone, Amy? I forget. I think we're good. All right, just thank you for giving all this year, and especially now when I know everyone is tired and their gas tanks are completely empty for this amazing ceremony. So thank you so much.
here and then. So we'll invite the graduates to go stand over there, and you need to be in order of Dumoulin, Morel, Nolan, Gill. Here's the wolf. Now, for this part, the graduates are allowed to have off their masks. So, I would like to call to receive your diploma from the Upper Valley Waldorf School for the graduation of 2021. Sorry. Nika Justina Dumoulin. Morale. Monet L.J. Nolan. Emerson Schurer. Graduating class of the Upper Valley Waldorf School 2021. Recession. Will you call me out and list the
Well, good morning. There goes our graduates, and I'm Brian Wolf. I'm the administrative director, and so we've come to the end of our formal graduation ceremonies, and I must say it's been an amazing way to be here with you in person to end our school year. And so I thank you, and I thank all of the guests there and out in the internet land that have joined us. And so now is the time to meet our graduates, to take pictures, to socialize, and we've got some amazing main lesson material, artwork, fantastic displays, so please join us in the middle school wing to do all that. So thank you. Thank you.
But, you know, John, I'm leaving quickly.